You're listening to Myers-Briggs Question Corner with Edythe Richards.
I got a very interesting question from an anonymous source. Which Myers-Briggs type is the most rude? Tempting as it is for me to shout out a particular four-letter word or Myers-Briggs type, I'll say that of course this depends. Every Myers-Briggs type has the ability to be rude, and every person has a different definition of what's rude. It ultimately comes down to how you yourself interpret rudeness. People are going to have opinions of this based on their own life experience. Therefore, I'm going to answer this question with my own very subjective personal opinion. I'll start by sharing my own definition of rudeness. And by the way, my own Myers-Briggs preferences are for ENFP. In addition to the standard dictionary definition of general disrespect, not complying with social norms or etiquette, or insulting persons or people for no particular reason, some behaviors I consider to be particularly rude include purposefully not replying when someone says hello, interrupting, using every conversation as an opportunity to talk about oneself, thinking about what you're going to say next instead of paying attention to the person who's speaking, and to top it all off, rude drivers who refuse to use their turn signals or bother waving a thank you if I let them cut in front of me. So generally speaking, my own definition of rudeness involves people who are just not mindful of others or who are outright mean to others. How does this relate to the Myers-Briggs? Again, my own subjective view. If you're looking at rudeness purely from a Myers-Briggs perspective, for me, the crown rudest Myers-Briggs type goes to either an ESTJ or an ENTJ. Both of these types have extroverted thinking as a dominant function, and that is, I venture to say, the coldest, most domineering of the 8 cognitive functions. Extroverted thinking is all about goal achievement, structuring and organizing, or fixing things and people, sometimes even if those people don't want to be fixed. Even though this is a very useful function for contingency planning, management, and logic, people who use this as a dominant function may forget that people are people, not tools for their manipulation to succeed at the expense of all else. ESTJs and ENTJs must be right, barking orders, pushing people around, being bossy and judgmental, doing whatever to get what they want without regard to how other people feel. Introverted feeling is their inferior function, meaning it's the last one to develop, and it's not a comfortable spot for a lot of ESTJs and ENTJs. This means that skills such as empathy, compassion, and understanding individuals don't come easily to them, and they're qualities that they may dismiss. I myself have a few ESTJ and ENTJ friends, but it's not always easy for me to get close to them unless they have developed their feeling function. With that said, I truly do admire the ambition and fortitude of ESTJ and ENTJ types, and I'm glad that there are people in the world who are willing to work hard and push through conflict situations. I can also make a case for ISTP and INTP types being rude. While a thinking, judging type such as an ENTJ and ESTJ might be more concerned about how others will affect them and their goals, a thinking, perceiving type such as an ISTP and INTP might be more concerned with themselves and their own goals, often their own world, so to speak. To some people, this may be considered rude if there's a complete disregard for other people. ISTPs and INTPs both use extroverted feeling as their inferior function, which means that they may be triggered if something goes against their knowledge or anything they're proud of. If and when this happens, all they care about is preserving their pride, as they are extremely sensitive to criticism. In the case of an INTP, they may ghost you, avoid eye contact, or outright refuse to speak to you. Even if you make a logical argument, they may have a hard time accepting it if it conflicts with their viewpoints. ISTP types will just outright refuse to converse and really don't care. If that's rude, then so be it. It's not surprising that I, as a feeling type, will immediately jump to thinking types being the most rude. However, if I were to stop here, I'd be missing out on a key element of feeling types. They can be the most vindictive people, more likely to hold a grudge, and maybe even more likely to lose their tempers. And for many people, other feeling types included, these behaviors are considered very rude. If you're on bad terms with a feeling type, they can be the most conniving and mean people in the world. As with any Myers-Briggs type, a lot of this has to do with a person's maturity level, their general health and overall well-being, and their emotional intelligence. Healthy, mature feelers can express negative emotions, such as anger or disappointment, without becoming passive-aggressive or repressed. Unhealthy feelers may internally seethe while presenting a happy face externally, especially Myers-Briggs types who use introverted feeling, such as INFPs and ISFPs, as a dominant function. These types may also take everything extremely personally, shut out everyone close to them, or lash out at or manipulate them. If other people don't conform to their way of doing things, don't accept their opinions, or upstage them in some way that triggers something within them, watch out. Unhealthy feelers can become the most melodramatic, self-absorbed, judgmental, ruthless, obnoxious people you've ever met. An example of what I'm talking about here. According to PersonalityJunkie.com, both Gandhi and Hitler were INFJ types. Gandhi was obviously compassionate, empathetic, and a visionary, all of which are qualities used to describe healthy INFJs. Hitler, on the other hand, was an egomaniac filled with hate. Every Myers-Briggs type has healthy and unhealthy versions. And my own type isn't immune. As I mentioned, I am an ENFP type, and because we are dominant extroverted intuition, there's a chance our brainstorming and ability to generate clever new ideas can get ahead of us, causing us to come across as insensitive to others or blurt out things before thinking them through. This often happens when we're excited, and if someone points out that we're being rude, we'll feel extremely guilty and will most likely make amends and learn from the behavior. If we're a mature, healthy ENFP, that is. We're also prone to being forgetful, and some people may consider this rude. But once again, you can gently remind us and steer us in the right direction. Healthy ENFPs are very compassionate, warm people, and the last thing most of us want to do is to be inconsiderate to anyone. We just need a little guidance from time to time. Now, this is all very ENFP-centric, so I'm going to do something I don't often do. I'd like my fabulous producer, David, to weigh in on rudeness. David, would you share your Myers-Briggs type with our listeners and tell us some things that you consider rude?
Thanks, Edythe. Hello, listeners. I'm David. I'm an INTJ, and I've lived in Scotland my whole life. And rumour has it that I'm just learning to play the bagpipes.
Well, congratulations on that. Maybe we can include some of your songs on an upcoming podcast.
We'll see. But anyway, rudeness. Now, we INTJs, I know, we're often accused of being rude. But I want to set the record straight that being direct and logical isn't the same as being rude. I'd actually venture to say that it's not being direct that's being rude. Just get to the point and say what you have to say.
This is a great example of how different Myers-Briggs types might view rudeness differently. For thinking types like yourself who aren't typically afraid of conflict, you appreciate a direct approach. For feeling types like myself, that direct approach can seem mean and cause us not to listen or comply with whatever else you have to say.
Right. I have to remind myself of that when I'm dealing with my clients. And it's a skill I've actually learned from you, Edythe, because feelers seem to appreciate a softer approach, and I'm pleased to say it's yielded me better results. I can still be seen as arrogant though, and I really don't mean to be. Well, truth be told, sometimes maybe I do. But mostly I'm just focusing on something else. I guess my face is the same expression whether I'm hard at work or trying to have small talk with somebody.
Small talk is tough for INTJ types, I know, but I've got to say I'm very impressed with the lengths that you've gone in adjusting how you relate to others, and I'm thrilled that it's helped you.
Personally and professionally, it really has. But you asked about what I consider to be rude. I've got a list. Some of what you considered rude also rings true for me, especially the interrupting part. But for me, it's more about interrupting my alone time. Additionally, rudeness for me means, 1, the ignorance of not replying to someone who's clearly trying to keep in touch or help you or assist you. For example, I had a client that I'm phasing out now because I'd wrote to him 3 or 4 times in succession and complete lack of interest. Point 2 would be sharing something, say, from Facebook without giving the original post or at least a like. So basically just pinching from them. Not sharing credit is a sore point too. That would be number 3. And that goes all the way to the top, sadly. Number 4 would be questioning my expertise and sincerity. If I know something, I know it. And I'll put it out there. I don't really appreciate being called on it publicly. That happened to me once. And I didn't get on with the person for a long time after that because they undermined my authority on the subject. And that's kind of rude in my book.
So to sum it up, people not replying when asked specifically, not giving credit when credit is due, and questioning your expertise, all of which are very indicative of the INTJ style. INTJs trust what they can verify with facts and therefore tend to be candid, calling out the truth for what it is, and distrustful of emotions and feelings. This is a gentle reminder to all of our listeners. What each of us personally consider rude may or may not have anything to do with one's Myers-Briggs type. Each Myers-Briggs type can be rude, and rudeness has a lot to do with each person's maturity and general well-being. Many thanks to my reader who asked this question, as it's sure to spark a lot of discussion among Myers-Briggs types.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you'd like to hear more, or you'd like to submit a question yourself, then you can find us at www.atopcareer.com. Until next time. MBTI and Myers-Briggs are registered trademarks of the MBTI Trust.